Kanetsuki Maharu is the name of a girl from a relative's family with whom the main character, Itsuki, is living. One day, she secretly asks him to meet her on the rooftop to talk, as this conversation wouldn't be convenient to have at home. She hesitates momentarily, as it's truly difficult to say everything outright. Itsuki encourages her to speak frankly with him, since they are childhood friends after all. After a tense period of mental preparation, she turns to him and says she's pregnant, that she's having a baby. Since they have been living together for 3 years and done so many things, and considering all the intimate romantic activities they've engaged in, Maharu thinks that having a child together is normal. Itsuki is shocked, but fortunately, Maharu denies that the baby is his. He begins to worry about her health, wondering how someone could be so nonchalant about being pregnant. But before Maharu can reveal who the father is, they are both sucked into a mysterious magical circle that appears from the sky. Opening his eyes again, Itsuki realizes they have been transported to a completely unfamiliar place. Worried, he quickly searches for Maharu, then notices she is lying right beside him. She also wakes up soon after. Maharu is strangely calm, analyzing that this place resembles abandoned ruins. Compared to being pregnant before marriage, being transported to another world is child's play. In any case, the two need to escape from here. Although Itsuki has no need to know, Maharu insists on revealing the identity of the baby's father. Surprisingly, there is no father at all. It was just that one fine day, she felt something change in her body, Googled it, and Google told her it was a sign of pregnancy, followed by a pregnancy test showing 2 lines. She didn't know what to do anymore. She was too scared to see a doctor, so she only dared to tell him. After expressing the feelings she had kept inside for so long, Maharu felt much better. Itsuki advises her to still see a doctor, and whenever they escape from this strange place, he will certainly go with her. Suddenly, Maharu cries out in pain. Itsuki thinks it's morning sickness, but no, Maharu clutches her head and screams in agony. Then a giant monster emerges from her body. It lunges at Itsuki while he's still trying to understand what's happening. Just when he thinks his life is about to end, Itsuki awakens his protagonist powers. A sword materializes from his hand, and he uses it to attack the monster and protect Maharu. After defeating the creature, they both notice a crack in the wall. Stepping outside, they find themselves in an eerie forest. The surprises don't end there. Itsuki discovers a mark on his hand, and Maharu has one on her cheek as well. While the two are still lost in their own world, a ferret appears from nowhere and climbs onto Maharu. It welcomes them to the magical world of Grandania. Seeing the flying ferret, Maharu thinks it's some kind of toy or drone. It introduces itself as Mana. Then, it flies around Maharu, judging by her scent that she is a virgin, and says she smells like daisies. Accompanying the ferret is a young man with orange hair named Nar. Mana introduces the 2 siblings to Nar as this time's Mervits, because they bear the seal marks. Since standing here would be dangerous, Nar offers to guide the 2 siblings to Grandania Castle to meet the ruler. He introduces himself as a scholar of this kingdom. Here, people call the world where Itsuki and Maharu come from Sora. This is a different world, and those who have come here call it the world of magic. In other words, this place is parallel to Itsuki's world. When they meet the king, he greets them and quickly gets to the main point. This world is under threat, and he needs the 2 of them to save it. Every 10 years, Mervits bearing seal marks appear from the sky in this world. The 2 possess special powers, and the king wants them to use these powers to fulfill a mission. Suddenly, Maharu faints and is taken to a doctor. Itsuki is very worried about her, but the ferret keeps teasing him about being lustful, then continuously imagines scenarios that would make adult films look tame in comparison. Itsuki wakes up to find himself stripped naked, except for his underwear, with his limbs tightly bound. Before his eyes is a sexy red-haired girl. She remarks that Itsuki has a very beautiful body and introduces herself as Dr. Rion. She wants Itsuki to carefully observe his body. His body has 12 seal marks, and he must complete missions related to his marks. By entering the labyrinth and completing the task of removing impurities, Itsuki and his sister can return to the real world. Currently, the impurities in the labyrinth have turned into monsters, and the people of this world cannot defeat them. He must find the holy stars that have lost their power in the labyrinth and create new people. Thus, the labyrinth will be able to seal the impurities once more. Itsuki won't be alone, as the priestesses of the 12 zodiac signs will carry out the mission with him. There will be 12 maidens carrying power that can create purification magic. Until they lose their power, they will fulfill the mission of a priestess. and his cousin, Maharu, is also a Virgo priestess. Maharu comes to his bedside, saying she has heard the whole story, and it seemed she was summoned as a priestess. When the seal appeared, Maharu's body felt a lot of pain. Rion explains that because priestesses have the ability to remove impurities from the body, when the seal appears, they exhibit symptoms similar to pregnancy. And because Maharu has removed all the impurities from her body, she will be temporarily fine. Fortunately, Maharu wasn't actually pregnant. But the story doesn't end there. The priestesses have an additional mission to perform the love ritual, meaning the priestesses will have to create a child from the stars with Itsuki. According to the ferret's explanation, creating babies is the act of saving the world. Itsuki imagines scenes of enjoying himself with 12 beautiful girls and smiles lewdly along with the ferret. Right now, he and Maharu must perform the 12 zodiac love ritual. After all, the first time with someone familiar would be more comfortable. Rion promises to teach Maharu from beginning to end. And so the intimate scene begins. The two sit together on a bed. While both are still awkward, the hateful ferret flies around to provide support. It fondles around Maharu, making Itsuki uncomfortable enough to throw it elsewhere. In these matters, Itsuki respects Maharu's feelings, but since this is already a mission to return home, he and she will go all the way. With that, the two begin. The love ritual is a sacred ceremony aimed at creating the little stars. The 12 priestesses corresponding to the constellations, along with the Mervit, will support each other to create these little stars. The lesson ends here, and Itsuki and Maharu begin. They just fell into a cosmic trance, and the child was immediately born. Itsuki is very surprised. Clearly he hadn't done anything, hadn't experienced any pleasure. It turns out the love ritual is not about normal male-female activities. For the 12 priestesses to create the little stars, emotions are the deciding factor, not the physical body. And this is a sacred ritual. Only Mana was spreading false information. The child comes out to greet everyone. It is the representative of the Virgo constellation, named Virgo. The baby looks very cute, making Maharu and Itsuki very happy. One morning, while Maharu and Itsuki are next to each other, the perverted Mana interrupts again. It sniffs all over Maharu's body, complimenting that she has begun to have the scent of a woman, then teases Itsuki that using Maharu's huge breasts last night must have felt good. Maharu, embarrassed and blushing, throws the perverted panda cat flying a dozen meters away. The two want to see the child, but it has been taken for special training, and the two also have to fulfill their responsibilities as Mervit and priestess. So, they follow Mana into town. On the way, a girl appears, nibbling on a loaf of bread while pretending to run into Itsuki, causing him to fall on top of her. Then she blushes and quickly runs away. All of this she acts according to a script she is holding, and her acting skills are completely terrible. At the classroom, Rion introduces a series of new girls. They will all study together from now on, each one taking turns saying their name and occupation. Itsuki is surprised to find among them the girl who had bumped into him that morning. These 12 beautiful and seductive girls make him anxious, preparing himself for the various bedroom challenges ahead. Mana, with a head full of perverted thoughts, worries not only about Itsuki's mental state, but also about his masculinity. It carefully buys him a handbook of 100 bedroom secrets, while reminding him that the more intense the lovemaking, the stronger the star child born will be, all for the benefit of the world with no perverted thoughts whatsoever. Thus, Itsuki's journey of childbearing in this strange kingdom officially begins. Mana secretly arranges for Itsuki to couple with another maiden, but the result is unsuccessful. The next morning, after questioning, Mana discovers he still hasn't had any more children, laughing at him and calling him sexually weak, suggesting he should buy a 1-hour rocket to demonstrate his male prowess. The whole group, including new acquaintances, organized a small party to welcome the two distinguished guests, a joyful scene no different from a festival in the richest family in the country. Itsuki later meets Ruka, who is picking flowers to bring to the orphanage. The protagonist lends a hand, giving them both some private space. Suddenly, Ruka moves close, making Itsuki think she wants to make love in this scenic place. But she only says she wants to read his thoughts to ensure the love ritual is sincere. However, she cannot do this because he is a person from another world. After Ruka leaves, Maharu comes to find him, her eyes gentle yet seductive. She shares that perhaps the bitter chocolate made her tipsy, and when drunk, people usually speak their true feelings. She thanks Itsuki for accompanying her since childhood, recalling a promise from 10 years ago, but he can't remember it, so she quietly puts the doll gift in her bag. Mana then takes Itsuki to prepare for entering the labyrinth, a place where countless warriors have gone in and never returned, warning it's a dangerous area full of impurities. At the nursery where the star child is raised, Itsuki meets Virgo and Alfie practicing. Alfie continuously feeds the boy onions and uses harsh words, but his attitude toward Itsuki has turned 180 degrees. The boy hugs his father and promises to train hard so he can enter the labyrinth with him. Alfie also advises him to have more star children to increase his chances of success. Nevertheless, besides Maharu, Itsuki still can't feel moved by anyone else. Ruka appears again, this time knocking on his door straightforwardly suggesting they sleep together for a night. Initially, Itsuki makes excuses that she is still innocent, and he can't bear to let his child Virgo sleep alone. But eventually, they both give in to their feelings. At first, Ruka, embarrassed, wants to turn off the lights, but the intimate atmosphere carries them away. The next morning, the king presents Itsuki with guardian stars representing the 12 zodiac signs, each star born from a woman and capable of absorbing impurities. If all 12 stars are released in the deepest levels of the labyrinth, the world will be protected. Before the ancient gate, Rion explains that it was built by ancestors to seal the impurities. And now the ritual is about to begin. The door opens, and Itsuki, Mana, and the 2 star children enter. Before them is a real labyrinth with 12 levels, each level guarded by an impurity lord. These creatures are born from the negative energy of humans. The deeper they are, the stronger they become. Therefore, without unity and coordination, it will be difficult to return alive. As soon as they set foot inside, a lord appears, just waving its hand causes the 2 star children to become dizzy. Itsuki initially rushes in but is too late. The 2 children fall and turn into stone statues, making Itsuki extremely worried. Mana pulls his hand, reminding him that of all strategies, escape is the best option. It is in that moment that Itsuki truly realizes he needs to create more and stronger children to save this world. After exiting the labyrinth, the 2 children return to their normal forms. They thanked Itsuki for saving them. Itsuki was confused, not understanding what had happened. Mana explained that the little star children are protected by holy dolls whenever they encounter danger, so Itsuki could be completely at ease. The wounds on the children's bodies had also completely healed. This was just a test run. Next time, the children would have to try harder. And of course, Itsuki didn't want his children to suffer anymore. So he and the 2 children entered the labyrinth again. Mana saw that he had become more responsible as a Mervit. All that was left was to help him improve his skills for the love ritual. Right then, the 2 children crawled out again in tatters. They couldn't defeat the impurities inside, and Itsuki was also too exhausted and passed out. Mana saw that this situation wasn't good at all. It scolded him for being weak, saying that by now the Mervit should have already defeated the impurity lord. Itsuki apologized profusely for not being capable enough. The orange-haired man believed the current situation was at an alarming level. From ancient documents in the academy, he had suggested an idea from ancient legend. Itsuki would have to perform a double love ritual, meaning 2 women at once. The perverted Mana sighed in admiration, saying that having 2 girls at once would be incredibly pleasurable but could also cause his little brother to go limp. Itsuki wasn't sure if he could do it, so Mana suggested a plan. He just needed to lie still like a dead fish on the bed, leaving the women to do all the work, just like enjoying sushi. According to ancient documents, the double love ritual would create star children who were much better and more excellent than the current ones. However, in the past several hundred years, no Mervit had been able to handle multiple women at once, so this legend had not been verified, and it was unknown if this method had any side effects that would affect the Mervit. Currently, there was no other option. Mana teased again, saying Itsuki would be a pioneer in having group relations, but he should feel proud. Then it suggested a perfect location for this public activity. The hot springs, where the blue sky reflects on the water's surface, nature and vegetation harmonize, people can easily relax and immerse themselves in nature. Absolutely fantastic. Itsuki intended to tell Maharu about this strange business of being with multiple women at once, but he accidentally discovered the small doll that she always cherished, kept in her school bag. It was a memento from the old days, evoking childhood memories. When Maharu arrived at the hot springs, she said nothing, just suddenly removed her clothes, displaying her naked beauty to nature in the middle of the mountain. Having never seen a decent girl be so uninhibited, Maharu made Itsuki startled and couldn't help but feel awkward. After a moment of hesitation, Itsuki also prepared to undress to bathe with her. In the steaming hot water, Maharu keenly noticed that Itsuki's body was covered with wounds left from his adventure in the labyrinth, and her heart swelled with infinite compassion. She seriously instructed him to take care of himself, while promising they would survive until the end to return to their world as promised. Perhaps because the water temperature was too hot, or because her heart was beating so fast it felt like it would explode, Maharu fainted. When she regained consciousness, it was already dark. Seeing her doll fall into the spring, she was about to dive in to find it. But fortunately, Itsuki promptly picked her up to the shore, worried because the spring water would get cold after sunset. He reassured her that he would help find that precious memento, and he even confirmed that he had remembered the promise from 10 years ago to protect her anytime. The poetic and romantic scenery and the ambiguous atmosphere caused the couple to close their eyes, preparing to do it once more. Just when everything seemed perfect, once again Mana appeared, interrupting and ruining the atmosphere. It asked the young couple to restrain the beast within themselves and wait until they reached the temple to continue, as a form of apology and plea. To soothe them, Mana even promised to give each of them several toys like vibrators and candies as gifts. Not only that, but it also kindly prepared the kingdom's dream horse carriage for faster travel. However, when they arrived, the group was still severely reprimanded by Dr. Rion because Itsuki hadn't carefully tended to his wounds and had caught a cold. Just hearing about the love ritual, Mana couldn't hide its joy, feeling elated. This time, Rion decided she would also directly participate in the group activity. All that was left for Itsuki was to choose one more girl to accompany them. During the conversation, Rion suddenly realized that Itsuki's way of speaking was somewhat familiar, exactly like her unfortunate close friend who had died a few years ago due to illness. Rion was touched, taking a bite of an apple to ease her sadness, and promised to meet Itsuki again soon, this time going with another girl to perform the destined love ritual. On the way back, while still confused about who to choose, Itsuki suddenly stopped in front of a shop where Farun was carrying trays, serving customers, even dancing and swaying, causing the men to cheer with delight. Seeing that, Itsuki was drawn into the fun, having a few drinks to relax, but he was still like a child, preferring sweet drinks. Upon inquiry, it was revealed that Farun also had a troubled fate, just a traveling dancer around the world who was suddenly branded as a priestess. Seeing this, Itsuki quickly applied the theory he had just learned from the book Mana gave him, treating it as practicing new knowledge, by biting Farun's ear and inviting her to a wonderful world of love. Seeing Farun blush, Itsuki felt successful. This book was truly useful. Mana, hiding in a corner, was also happy because Itsuki had finally done something worthwhile. So the love ritual was conducted again, with two sexy girls standing before him. At first, Itsuki was worried about his little brother, fearing it might not be able to handle it. But after regaining his spirit, he decided he couldn't let such an opportunity slip away. As a result, not long after, two clever, radiant star children were born, Capri and Scorpi, both intelligent and magnificent, beyond everyone's imagination. And the two girls were also utterly satisfied. With this new source of power, the group didn't hesitate and headed straight into the labyrinth to battle. This time, the result was an overwhelming victory. Itsuki's group successfully eliminated the Impurity Lord, then placed the Guardian Star in the necessary position. Immediately, the source of impurity in the labyrinth decreased dramatically, and so the first mission was completed. Itsuki and the children continued their mission. This time, he successfully destroyed another scorpion monster. Next, they just needed to receive the Holy Seal, so they had gone a quarter of the way. The next enemy was inside the labyrinth, and the deeper they went, the denser and more ferocious the impurities became. Hearing the frightening roars inside, Itsuki had to continue increasing the number of little star children. However, he always had to fight, so he didn't have time to meet and get close to them. So Mana, the messenger of population growth, came up with another trick. It would take Itsuki and 12 beautiful girls to vacation at a resort where they could do it anytime, anywhere. This vacation was also guided by Mana itself. It would do everything for the love ritual. It teased Itsuki again about his good fortune, saying that this time he would have 12 scantily clad, enthusiastic priestesses to play with. Seeing Itsuki's cluelessness, it had to explain to him. Blue sea, white clouds, golden sunshine, 12 sexy girlfriends in bikinis, how wonderful it would be. It even thoughtfully prepared swimsuits for the girls. This time, the blonde-haired man also went to the beach to take photos, looking indecent with his shirt unbuttoned. He was a famous idol at school, but was also a stalker who harassed priestesses. Perhaps his target this time was Lilith. He was a playboy, but no priestess would fall for him, so he successively gave up and changed targets. It seems that because Mana had posted photos on social media, he had caught the scent and followed. Several beautiful girls in seductive swimsuits had arrived at the beach, looking relaxed and playful, making Itsuki unable to help but blush. Finding Mana too troublesome, Itsuki threw it away again, flying several meters. Then he went to sit beside Lilith, asking why she wasn't playing in the water with everyone else. She had consulted her fortune, and today's reading said to avoid water, and she advised him to go play with the others. Seeing the blonde-haired man taking selfies, Lilith criticized him as a narcissist who loved himself, because he had previously come to have his fortune told, looking for which priestess was the purest and most suitable for him. Lilith had a bad impression of him. Seeing that Itsuki seemed not to believe in her prophecy, Lilith covered her face and burst into tears. Immediately, a girl with pink hair and a fierce appearance stood up, introducing herself as Lily, coming to punish anyone who dared to bully Lilith. Seeing that Itsuki was still boldly claiming that Lilith's prophecy was wrong, Lily straightforwardly confronted him. To her, Lilith was the best. Number 1, Lilith was always right. If he dared to say Lilith's prophecy was wrong, she wanted him to prove it to her properly. Itsuki apologized, but he still would never believe in fortune-telling tricks. Lily cursed him as a bastard, telling him to verify the accuracy of the prophecies himself. Then she called for Lilith to come out, to let this fool see her top-notch prophetic skills. Lilith took control of her body, asking Itsuki what had just happened. Itsuki recounted everything, wanting to hear Lilith's prophecy. So Lilith took out her crystal ball, closed her eyes to sense the upcoming prophecy. Suddenly she paused, then shyly took out a notebook to write, saying her prophecy was too silly. Seeing Lilith being bullied again, Lily immediately stepped in with a warning. From a distance, the blonde-haired man was bribing Mana to reveal information about their conversation. Lily asked Itsuki what he had done to her sister, but he had simply asked her for a prophecy. Mana appeared from somewhere, adding fuel to the fire, saying the main reason was because Itsuki refused to believe in Lilith's prophecy. Afterward, it whispered something to the blonde-haired man in exchange for a reward. Lily noticed a piece of paper tucked under her underwear. She took it out to read and seemed to understand something. Then she asked Itsuki if he was mentally prepared. She pointed directly at his face, saying that at this rate, he could very well die. Lilith had seen the death mark on him in the near future. Seeing Itsuki still indifferent, Lily reproached him once more. If it was the future, then Itsuki would have to accept it, because even knowing the prophecy wouldn't change anything. Seeing this, Lily became truly angry. She repeatedly punched her head and continuously switched between Lily and Lilith. Lilith appeared, her face full of tears. Itsuki said he had heard everything from Lily, but he still couldn't believe it. Lilith tearfully told him it was the truth, so he asked her when, what time, and where he would die. And if she could see the future, surely she must know that. Lilith, with tears in her eyes, said that a priestess's duty was to support the Meravit. The prophecy was to predict the future and also to avoid danger, so she begged Itsuki to listen to her prophecy. Then she pointed him to look at Mana, who was enjoying itself. Although she couldn't stop him, she could use behavior to change the outcome of the prophecy. Therefore, she would strike directly at his weakness. Meanwhile, the blonde-haired man was in ecstasy thanks to Mana's massage techniques. Seeing him so pleased to the point of climax, Itsuki and Lilith blushed with embarrassment. And so that blonde-haired man would not bother everyone for some time. Indeed, Lilith had the ability to change destiny. Itsuki decided to believe in the sisters. Lilith continued to use her crystal ball to predict how to save him, and she blushed again. It turned out that the way to save Itsuki's life was to create little star children. And so this time our protagonist got to be with both sisters at once. The next morning, the children had to go through the devil training of the male-obsessed teacher. Seeing Itsuki arrive, the group was like finding a lifeline. Thinking Itsuki would come, the teacher had even prepared some coffee and tea to offer him. At this time, Eri and the blonde-haired Seiya were spying on them. Discovering they were caught, Eri frantically ran away. She couldn't understand why she had been caught even though she was disguised. She went to a weapon shop. The item she had ordered was ready. It was a spear, produced by the most skilled craftsman in the country. She caressed the spear like a little pervert. Since priestesses couldn't fight, at least with this spear, she could convey her feelings to Itsuki. The old blacksmith laughed with delight, wishing he had a wife like Eri. Afterward, she returned to the church. Inside was her entire arsenal of heavy weapons. Then she prayed to God as if nothing had happened. Seiya suddenly rushed in, asking to hide there. Because of the motto, "Love your enemies," she decided to save him. Then she asked what was wrong, and he could confide in her. After a while, it seemed that Seiya had discovered a new truth of life. He tearfully thanked her profusely. For him, it was painful not being able to share with anyone. Seeing that Seiya had shared a secret, Eri thought she should also share her story with him. And so this ambiguous scene that made people think inappropriate thoughts occurred. But it turned out they were just practicing with weapons. Seiya, unable to hold the super heavy spear, had slipped and fallen. And somehow it was just when Itsuki opened the door, seeing Seiya lying on top of Eri. So Itsuki misunderstood, scolding Seiya as a terrible person. Seeing that her weapon was still safe, Eri began explaining that they were just playing a little. Itsuki, fearing she was being forced, vowed to protect her honor. When he heard Mana say she was still a virgin, he felt somewhat relieved. So Eri took Itsuki into her weapons warehouse, then excitedly had Seiya take photos of him. Itsuki took the opportunity to invite her to bed. But unfortunately for him, Eri was a sadomasochism enthusiast. Today, Mana came up with a new trick for Itsuki, which was to make him play an adult action role-playing game. But the problem was that in this game, every girl was Mana. Too terrifying, Itsuki ran away to meet the Aries priestess Eri, which was completely according to the plan Mana had mapped out beforehand. Fortunately, Eri welcomed him warmly. He made up an excuse that he just happened to be there. A group of children surrounded her. She explained that she took care of these children and taught them. Itsuki asked permission to leave. He went to a crowded place where people were pushing each other in a shopping scene. Itsuki was exhausted but managed to get a few cakes. Yet before he could properly start a conversation with Yuzuha, the girl had already hurriedly run away, losing her sandals. Itsuki sat eating cake alone, while Yuzuha hid to one side, upset because she was suddenly chosen to be a priestess. Just at that moment, Mana appeared with a reproachful face, throwing a manga book at Itsuki, complaining why he didn't think about its share of the cake. Moreover, Mana deliberately chose a sensitive chapter to hint that the protagonist should learn to apply it to adults, the imaginary subject being none other than Eri, making Itsuki ignore it and stand up to leave, walking briskly to knock on Yuzuha's door. Initially, Yuzuha was extremely cautious, but faced with a hungry stomach, she was forced to accept the cake from Itsuki's hand. The surprise continued when he caught Yuzuha using that cake to erase some incorrect drawings on her painting. That innocent and adorable action made the girl seem to no longer be wary of Itsuki. Even boldly inviting him to stay and enjoy a cup of tea, she made herself and smiling at him, calling him Oniai-chan, not knowing that outside, the perverted Mana was imagining a completely different scene, in which the two didn't stop at enjoying tea, but also did several ambiguous and perverse things together. The atmosphere between the two at that time was somewhat awkward. Yuzuha apologized time after time for calling Itsuki unexpectedly, then apologized for forcing him to drink tea. Each apology only increased the shyness. To break the awkwardness, Itsuki changed the subject, asking about the painting she was drawing, and then learned that this was Yuzuha's daily job. But actually, she suffered from a serious fear of people, to the extent that at night she even had to crawl inside a box to find a sense of security. She even gave a cute name to that coffin, regarding it as a close friend. She often had beautiful dreams. However, the girl sadly said that recently she could no longer dream those wandering dreams like before when lying in the coffin, which made Itsuki suddenly feel compassion, suggesting that tomorrow they could have lunch in the park together, both to give her a change of scenery and to help her get some more ideas for painting. The next morning, before Yuzuha appeared, Itsuki had to endure annoyance as the Mana lizard played tricks in front of him, running back and forth erratically to the point where he had to chase it away for a long time before it would disappear. And then when Yuzuha actually appeared, Itsuki couldn't help but gape in astonishment, because she brought her beloved coffin to the park to play with him. After they finished eating, Yuzuha excitedly showed Itsuki that she had just decorated the coffin more, making it more feminine and cute. She began to feel that talking to Itsuki was really comfortable, quite different from other people. Not only that, she also demonstrated an extremely useful performance, proving that her coffin could store countless art supplies for work, and when tired, turn it into a portable bed to rest. Although Yuzuha said that now she couldn't dream anything, so she couldn't paint, Itsuki still gently pointed out to her the deep blue sky and the beautiful scenery around. helping her realize that there were countless interesting things out there that could be included in paintings. However, the outing was not complete when a few mothers walking past with their children. The child pointed at something but was quickly blindfolded and pulled away by the mother, which hurt Yuzuha's self-esteem and demanded to go home immediately, even though Itsuki explained it was all because of Mana and not because of her. She still blamed herself for dragging Itsuki into a situation where people laughed at him. In his confusion, Itsuki accidentally met Eri again at the church. She explained that Yuzuha's strange sleeping dream disease was actually a dream disorder. Each dream she had meant her own lifespan was shortened. Therefore, Yuzuha always carried a coffin with her, not to sleep peacefully, but to prepare for death that could come at any time. And that was also why the girl avoided people. Hearing Eri's encouragement, Itsuki became more determined to help Yuzuha regain her faith in life. When he returned, he was surprised to see Mana busily building a double coffin, wanting to pair Itsuki with Yuzuha. This creature was always so meddlesome, but this time Itsuki found it quite useful. Finally, Itsuki persuaded Yuzuha to go out and play again. They played together in the cool stream, laughing and shouting like children, and when tired, they came ashore to chat about youthful confidences. Yuzuha looked up at her constellation. Although it was faint, it could still be seen. In that peaceful moment, Yuzuha smiled happily, then tiredly rested her head on Itsuki's lap and fell asleep. She found him so gentle and warm. The next morning when she woke up, Itsuki was filled with joy when he heard her say that she had dreamed beautiful dreams again. That made Yuzuha determined to fulfill her responsibility as a priestess for Itsuki. And so that night, the fair couple officially blended together, weaving love clouds and rain, bringing another child into the world. The next morning, Mana was so happy it cried tears witnessing the results. It excitedly gave Itsuki a thick magazine containing all kinds of new theories and positions to learn, and even prepared a special gift for Eri to give as a thank you. But Itsuki slightly felt that Eri's eyes had something different, like she was hiding something. It turned out the gift box inside was a rope for BDSM play. Outside, Mana and Maharu just stood watching from afar, secretly feeling pleased. This cute girl is the priestess of the Aquarius constellation, Isekai'd. She was famous throughout the town for her politeness, gentle character, and smile that always radiated sunshine. She was caring for her elderly grandfather. She looked very innocent, knowing nothing about the world, even thinking babies were born because storks brought them to parents. She was working at a small bakery, where the sweet scent of flour and butter spread to every corner of the street. People often praised her for being both talented, skilled, and also innocent and pure, making many men wish they could get close to her just once. Now, Itsuki's mission was to taint this little girl. Mana beside him babbled that he would draw on the white paper, making the girl lose her inherent innocence and purity. Although he knew he had to join with the star priestess to save the world, Itsuki couldn't bear to make a move on this little girl, because he wasn't a pedophile. Even though these hands had been with many girls, he still felt playing with an innocent girl was sinful. Then he came to help at her bakery. Isekai'd secretly thanked Itsuki for his enthusiastic help, but she also clearly understood his purpose wasn't just to be friendly, but also wanted to create a little star with her. Although she tried to explain that she had no intention of inviting him to bed, the more Itsuki spoke, the more his words became confused, making the situation somewhat awkward. Finally, the protagonist had to honestly admit that he just wanted to get to know her, to make friends with her. Currently, what he needed was her smile, and the other mission he wanted to leave for later, when both had time to adapt. To dispel the awkwardness, Itsuki rolled up his sleeves and entered the kitchen, kneading dough and baking bread with Isekai'd. Through some heart-to-heart conversations, he learned that being a baker was the girl's childhood dream. Looking at Isekai'd's bright, innocent smile like morning sunshine, Itsuki's heart suddenly felt peaceful. Meanwhile, Mana murmured teasingly, comparing kneading dough to the desire to touch Isekai'd's fair skin, making Itsuki embarrassed enough to throw it several meters away again. The two had a day both busy and happy together, laughter echoing throughout the kitchen, the scent of bread making time seem to pass faster. When the first batch came out of the oven, Isekai'd playfully broke off a piece and fed it to Itsuki like coaxing a child. The bread was delicious, soft, and sweet, but in Itsuki's eyes, that sweetness couldn't compare to the gentleness of the girl standing in front of him. Mana slurred again, saying what he really wanted to eat wasn't bread, but the girl, causing it to be thrown away once more. The shop had a new employee today. The atmosphere should have been bustling, yet it was unusually quiet. Itsuki spoke up to console her, suggesting that maybe customers had already eaten their fill today. Khalid sadly told the protagonist about the once famous baker. The shop always crowded with people, long lines of customers waiting to buy. But since she took over, the number of customers had decreased significantly. Just then, Maharu and Eri walked in, supporting by buying bread, becoming the first two customers, bringing a bit of hope to both. But the joy was short-lived, as throughout the day, the shop remained as empty as a temple. Fortunately, a group of little star children led by Alfie came to buy bread, making Itsuki feel warm. In difficult times, he realized he wasn't alone, but always had teammates and friends beside him. Alfie even gave him a bag of bread for support. Khalid saw that and became more excited. Her will burning again, she was determined to bake more new batches of bread. But just as the atmosphere was brightening, two aggressive men appeared, both shouting and mocking the poor business. They claimed to be from the world's #1 bakery, arrogantly announcing they wanted to open a new branch right here. It turned out they were targeting Khalid's shop location, intending to use their strength to force her out. But before they could be smug, they were chased away by the young, impulsive group of little star children. Itsuki later learned that it was the rival bakery that had played tricks, causing customers to turn their backs on Khalid's shop. Mana quickly provided more information, revealing that the owner of the rival bakery was the family of the Leo constellation priestess. It told him to go meet her. Perhaps not only could he help Khalid, but also have another child. Without hesitation, Itsuki immediately sought out Femaruna to beg for help. But she flatly refused, not wanting to let personal emotions affect her family's business. During the argument, Femaruna unfortunately fell and hit her head on the corner of the table and lost consciousness. Itsuki quickly caught her. When she woke up, she found herself imprisoned in a dark room, and the scary masked man bringing food was none other than Itsuki. Outside, Mana advised him to treat her well, and started to brainwash him that he must use any dirty trick to have a child. In reality, following Mana's advice, the protagonist had taken her to a safe place, Khalid's warehouse, to avoid harm from bad people. Femaruna initially firmly resisted. Through the crack in the door, seeing a completely unfamiliar space, she became even more worried. Although Itsuki brought food every day, she still resolutely wouldn't touch it, causing her body to gradually weaken. She was afraid Itsuki was craving her body. She was afraid she would be poisoned if she ate the bread. Witnessing this, Itsuki angrily took off his mask, showing his sincerity, urgently begging her to quickly eat a piece of bread. He wanted to save her, didn't want her to starve to death. Seeing Itsuki's eyes, Femaruna's heart gradually softened, because until now, anyone who came to her was only for power, money, fame. For the first time, she felt a truly sincere heart. Then she asked Itsuki to feed her. She seemed healthier. She was as docile as a little cat. She had no idea it was all a plot by the cunning Mana. In the following days, not just food, Itsuki also helped her with daily activities. Then what would come did come. The two finally got into bed together to prepare to produce a baby. She promised she would create the strongest little star. On the other side, the shop owner advised Khalid to participate in a baking competition to regain her reputation. At this moment, a flow of negative energy was affecting the world. Mana was sitting writing a novel. Itsuki didn't know what new trick it was about to set up. Mana quickly suggested that Itsuki should participate in the upcoming Bible festival, similar to a school festival in his world, as this was a rare opportunity for couples to pledge their love to each other. They would hold hands and dance around the bright campfire at night. How romantic that scene would be. Not stopping there, Mana also pulled out a brand new magazine, with content like a horror movie script. According to it, people tend to get closer to each other when experiencing scary things together. In other words, horror leads to inappropriate things, making Itsuki frown and hastily say goodbye and leave, leaving Mana still immersed in its scripts. Just then, he was startled to see someone had sent a letter from Khalid to prepare for the festival. Everyone everywhere was busy. Alfie and the star children were handing out flyers, while Yusuha and Maharu had set up their own stalls. Seeing Yusuha happy, Itsuki felt relieved. Meanwhile, Khalid was still struggling to decide which type of bread to enter in the competition, as this festival was a once-in-a-millennium opportunity to restore the reputation of the family bakery. She said that her grandfather had left her up to 100 different recipes, but unfortunately, the most important recipe, the happiness bread recipe, had been lost long ago. Her grandfather was too old and weak now, unable to remember the recipe anymore. But she was determined to make this bread, all to restore the shop's reputation. She begged Itsuki to help her. Seeing this, Itsuki felt pained. He knew this wasn't just a competition but also her pride, so he promised to do his best to help her overcome it. Mana and the entire group of companions were excited, bustling with discussion, eagerly awaiting the festival. The festival atmosphere looked very joyful. Isekai'd was practicing baking with Itsuki. During practice, Isekai'd suddenly turned and asked Itsuki that if she were a cake, which part would he want to eat first, a question that made him pause for a few seconds, then answer that it would definitely be the softest, most delicious part, which sounded like he was alluding to her tender body. Itsuki awkwardly looked around. Perhaps if it were her, he would start from the ear. According to his wish, she would create the happy ear cake. Then she offered him her ear. Itsuki took a bite, and the girl teased that perhaps he preferred eating real ears. Next was a strange banana cake, large and long with 2 dangling eggs, looking impossible to think purely about with such a suggestive image. On the other side, Mana was fortune-telling for a priestess. Her trouble was late delivery because she ran too fast. Isekai'd's next dish was a ballon cake, and the cakes were looking increasingly darker. The priestess getting advice was sharing her fear of not being able to become a reliable priestess. Isekai'd was still carefully crafting a series of new cakes, but all of them seemed to be made only with fruits. She slowly told about the lesson her grandfather left, that the happiness cake must be made from the heart and sincere emotions, and hoped that Itsuki would join her in synchronizing their souls to create a lifetime cake. Finally, after a lot of ambiguous actions, the complete cake was born. This was the happiness cake. The happiness cake stall was neatly decorated. Both were determined that from now on, they would change the fate of the shop with that sweet flavor. However, when they turned around, they were shocked to discover Maharu and Yuzuha's stall had sprouted right next door. Originally arranged by Femiruna's father to create a surprise, but no one expected it to turn into a direct competition. Maharu excitedly wanted to compete to see which side could sell more cakes. Isekai'd was initially excited to see she had sold out. But then the opposing side Maharu immediately had a fleet of trucks delivering a large number of additional cakes, a truly overwhelming force as that company was a mass-producing bakery. Itsuki consoled her that cakes made from the heart would never be overshadowed by quantity. Isekai'd was so touched that she pulled him into the warehouse, confessing that she also wanted to be like the happiness cake, wanting once to become one with the boy she trusted. And so in that private room, the two once again immersed themselves in their ambiguous atmosphere. But this time, something seemed a bit off, as the two were cosplaying sausages. The festive atmosphere outside was still bustling. Maharu and Yuzuha's stall had sold out of cakes. Femiruna even joked that when they ran out, they would sell thongs instead, making Itsuki, who had just left the warehouse worried his sister wouldn't sell all the cakes, both laugh and feel embarrassed enough to want to crawl into a hole. Afterward, he received a letter inviting him to meet Taruya, who was headbutting a tree. He rushed to the meeting point, but it turned out to be a trap exploitation and unpaid labor recruitment for Mana. It looked no different from slave exploitation. When standing by the stream with Taruya, she clumsily dropped all the letters into the water, losing some important ones, both panicking and sobbing. On the other side, the orange-haired man was selecting a pile of panties on display like a pervert. Itsuki over here couldn't find the letter, and Taruya was so scared she burst into tears, knowing the letters took a long time to write. Fortunately, Itsuki's keen eye spotted the letter stuck on a nearby tree branch, and he quickly retrieved it for her. Taruya emotionally thanked him repeatedly and hugged him. They continued delivering letters together, and finally revealed that the last letter was written by her, sent to him as a first date invitation. Itsuki immediately wrote back, "Carry my child." She blushed, saying she liked having her head patted. At that moment, both suddenly felt their love story was like a living painting, and once more, they spent a sweet night together, creating the sweet fruit of love for themselves. Everything was going according to Mana's plan. The day the impurities would be swept away was approaching. Meanwhile, Isekai'd was happy because she had collected a pile of panties. The famous dating show from Sora has arrived. This time, the chosen one is Itsuki. 12 girls are participating, each with their own distinct personalities. Who will be the one to conquer Itsuki's heart? The 12 priestesses come from different places with different personalities, their only common point being that they are all aiming for the protagonist's heart. These 12 beauties will compete to win Bachelor Itsuki's heart. The 12 priestesses with the ultimate emotional mission will participate in a fierce battle. At this moment, the 12 priestesses are neatly lined up in a long row, preparing to enter the ultimate love ritual with Itsuki. This time, the rules are stricter than ever. Only one person who truly holds the protagonist's heart can enjoy happiness like paradise on earth. When reading the announcement letter, the person assigned to serve Itsuki today is Sue, as she is the one who hasn't done anything with Itsuki yet. However, she didn't seem too concerned, as she was busy playing with some baby chicks around the yard. She was very unwilling for this date. At the meeting point, Sue was truly surprised to see Itsuki had thoughtfully prepared a lavish feast in the midst of fresh nature, surrounded by bird songs and babbling brooks, and even brought along the animals she was raising. And there was food for them too, specifically the talkative Mana. This choice of location showed that the protagonist was inherently very thoughtful and sensitive. Nevertheless, looking at the full table, both hesitated, neither daring to pick up the chopsticks right away. During their conversation, Sue gradually opened up more, telling him that her father was a knowledgeable scholar, while her mother was a veterinarian. Both had unfortunately not survived an impurity attack many years ago. They had hugged and protected her until their last breath. Whenever she mentioned it, Sue's fragile heart ached as if it would shatter. Itsuki held her tightly. That story made Itsuki even more determined. He thought not only about the mission he had to shoulder, but also clearly felt the pain that the people here had endured because of the impurities. In Itsuki's heart, a great ambition gradually formed. He had to quickly speed up progress, complete the mission to bring peace to everyone. Meanwhile, in another place where the girls were gathering and chatting, they were curious about how things were going between Itsuki and Sue. Maharu blushed when teased by friends about the love ritual she had experienced with Itsuki. Maharu understood that the love ritual was important to this world, so she sincerely wanted all the girls to be happy. As for Itsuki, still with his familiar style, he enthusiastically went to the kitchen to prepare simple yet warm Japanese meals specially for Sue. Saya and the teacher who were monitoring from the screen keenly observed that Itsuki usually only made Japanese food for people he genuinely had feelings for. Back at the scene, Mana excitedly announced that the festival promised even more exciting and hot lustful details for the audience. Indeed, the next letter revealed the next mission from Mervit. This time would be a group date. The Lily, Eri, Fallon, Femaruna, Rion, and Mayuri group would join a dating challenge with Itsuki. The subject was waiting in the room at the end of the hallway, and only those who reached there first would be privileged to have a secret date. More interestingly, the organizers were kind enough to prepare a tub of skin cream that looked like thick white liquid for the contestants to freely experience, no different from an anime version of Running Man. Now the girls had to climb with sticky liquid on their bodies, then slipped and fell. The lucky winner was Mayuri. Her eyesight wasn't very good. Before entering the competition, she was carefully escorted by Itsuki to bathe and clean up, a gentle yet intimate gesture. Despite poor eyesight, Mayuri possessed a healthy figure, fair smooth skin, short distinctive hair, and an innocent face. Her stuttering sentences, mixed with a bit of naivety, made Itsuki flutter with no escape. All along, he had thought she was calm and quiet, but it turned out she had such a cute other side. The secret date ended, and as usual, Itsuki prepared Japanese food for Mayuri to enjoy. One by one, each of the 12 priestesses had their own memorable experiences with him. Finally, only 2 contestants remained unchosen, Sue and Mayuri, who would be qualified to continue on the path to conquering the protagonist's heart. The next scene opened on a familiar bed, where Itsuki was waiting. The person who entered was Sue, a gentle, sweet girl with ears and a tail like a small cat in need of protection. Sue was not only beautiful with a full figure, but also knew how to be coquettish, making anyone beside her soften. She whimpered about her circumstances and wanted him to stay by her side forever. Upon hearing that Sue was actually an orphan, the organizers decided to have her and Mayuri fight an additional round to determine the winner. This battle revolved around the double love ritual. Mayuri, the mysterious person standing behind, had prepared in advance, ensuring that no one would leave empty-handed, as the specially concocted love potion would make all 3 transcend and forget the way back tonight. Sue now was like a kitten wanting to be stroked. Indeed, that unexpected combination brought about a strange bond, giving birth to 2 powerful little stars as evidence of the love act. The next morning, Itsuki was personally praised by Alfie for his superior masculine strength, able to maintain multiple sessions with 2 girls at once while keeping his form. Before he could rest, he received an urgent signal from Mana, requesting an immediate return to the castle. Here, Mana announced it had discovered a new labyrinth, completely different from the 12 familiar zodiac labyrinths. Ancient documents revealed that besides the 12 constellations, there existed a 13th constellation, the prison of the 13th demon, the core source of the impurity lord. Itsuki's mission now became heavier than ever, to seal all the power of the remaining 12 constellations, then proceed directly to confront the 13th demon. Dangerous, arduous, but also an unavoidable mission. On the way back with Mana, Itsuki curiously inquired about the identity of the 13th priestess. The result shocked him deeply when this person might not be a woman, but could be a man he had met before. When researching ancient documents, the orange-haired man discovered that besides the 12 zodiac labyrinths, there was another labyrinth. That was definitely a sign of the 13th priestess. A new priestess intrigued Itsuki, but the thought that this person might be a man made Itsuki look at men with a fluttery feeling in his heart. Mana, because of its talkative habit, was thrown straight into the pizza oven, becoming a baked ferret bear pizza. Right there, the protagonist Itsuki accidentally ran into Saya, who somehow looked so attractive this time. Then on the way forward, he kept encountering muscular men with sweat pouring like they were bathing, looking truly wild. Even Saya, who simply ran past, became strangely seductive in the glittering light. Perhaps this was like the feeling of love, where any image becomes extremely beautiful. Fate arranged for Itsuki and Saya to meet again at that moment, right in a space full of naked men with solid bodies. Then Saya got his shirt wet, along with Mana's provocative darkness, making Itsuki's mind fluctuate strongly, almost bending away from his original identity. In the end, the talkative Mana still suffered the consequence of being thrown hundreds of meters away. At a public bathhouse, surrounded by men, the atmosphere remained ambiguous. While Mana still babbled on about a love that smelled of cooking oil, Saya didn't hesitate to use Mana as a cloth to scrub his back. Why did he keep appearing like this? Perhaps this wasn't simply coincidence anymore, but destiny. He offered to scrub Itsuki's back, making Itsuki so shocked he ran away quickly. As for Itsuki, after that shock, he sought out a deserted, peaceful place, hoping to calm his mind, pouring out his concerns to Mana about the mysterious 13th character. Perhaps it would be someone who was very close to Itsuki before. In Itsuki's heart, he was still full of doubts about what to do if his next subject was truly a man. He still held an unwavering belief that priestesses would always be women. However, with just a few clever analyses, Mana gradually made Itsuki accept that harsh truth, scolding him for being old-fashioned, and suggesting there was a possibility that the priestess would be male. Mana continued to whisper that the 13th labyrinth had actually never been opened, because it had long been sealed and could also be seen as a forbidden door, carrying a mystical meaning like stepping into a different dimension, so it could very well be a completely new experience. Those words had not ended when Mana had already made Itsuki spin in a series of new scenarios like bizarre positions, unexpected types of relationships such as homosexual relationships, relationships with stepmothers, and even relationships with animals. Though a bit strange, they had a strong power of conquest. Itsuki intended to play with those girls again, but Mana demanded something new this time. This made the protagonist feel like he was betraying Maharu and the girls who had entrusted their feelings to him, falling into a spiral of dead ends. Not missing the opportunity, Mana immediately launched a series of images, forcing Itsuki to gradually get used to the prospect. It seemed Itsuki was also gradually accepting the idea of being with men. Mana analyzed and teased, saying that narcissists, though bookish, had no attraction. Seiya was famous for being a womanizer, but always missed opportunities, so perhaps he was still a virgin. As for the king, it was probably impossible for him to still be virgin. But anyway, trying once would reveal everything. Despite racking his brain, Itsuki still couldn't guess who would be his next lover. Just then, Saya appeared again, smiling and suggesting they take some photos for a magazine together. Mana saw this as prey coming right to the door. Itsuki didn't know how to start the conversation. In a private moment, Seiya suddenly expressed that despite his seemingly complete exterior, his heart was actually lonely and empty. He expressed that he understood Itsuki very well, understood that he was very lonely, just like him, always having to maintain the facade of a perfect handsome man while not having friends. Seiya looked at Itsuki with sad eyes, making Itsuki doubt his own gender identity. Previously, he had only pursued girls. This time, being pursued by a boy gave him a strange feeling. He felt himself being seduced. Seiya continued to become more ambiguous. The situation became dangerous when Saya almost became the one to steal that innocence. Fortunately, Itsuki was still able to run away in time. He complained to Mana that Saya had lain on top of him. If it continued, he might become the one giving birth to children. After that, Mana let Itsuki meet Narcissus. He was researching the 13th labyrinth. Hearing this, Itsuki was about to leave but was called back. However, before they could start, when he was just about to ask for help with something in the book, Itsuki had already fled in panic, leaving Narcissus alone to continue his research. Mana reproached Itsuki for running away. In a rare moment of quietness, Mana decided to share that hundreds of years ago, it was also an impurity sealed in the Black Labyrinth. Only when a powerful sorcerer liberated it did Mana get to know light. But tragedy struck when the sorcerer hadn't yet completed the ritual before permanently departing, leaving Mana alone. More painfully, it was also hunted by the authorities. Fortunately, thanks to the Mervit's protection, it escaped death and has loyally served the country from then until now. And the sorcerer from years ago turned out to be the current king, and it had served the king since then. Sometimes, Mana still felt self-hatred. That story moved Itsuki to the point he couldn't hold back, hugging Mana tightly. At that moment, he suddenly realized, in fact, he didn't discriminate against male-male affection as he had thought. The flame of determination burned brightly. He immediately proposed to try with Mana, as well as Narcissus and Saya. This time, who would be the 13th priestess? Itsuki suggested that both men could be the 13th priestess. He wasn't sure if they could produce children, but they might as well try to find out. When things exploded in the bedroom, Itsuki bitterly realized that it was all just a play directed by Mana. Both Saya and Narcissus played their roles too well, making him spin like a top, his neck sore from acting too much. Mana was truly skilled, turning everything into a literal joke. Itsuki had understood that the real connection didn't come from being a woman or a man, but from true love in the real sense. Itsuki stood before a list. If not a man, then who would priestess number 13 be? It would definitely be someone who had always been quietly supporting him from behind. He briefly thought of Mana, and had thought that perhaps lustfulness was also a characteristic of priestesses, causing Mana, hiding behind the door, to panic with fear. Itsuki would definitely find out who it was. But before worrying about the 13th labyrinth, he still needed to manage the 12 labyrinths first. That day, Itsuki and Alfie personally went to the field, directly standing as models for the little star children to follow and learn from. The atmosphere on the field was both serious and full of excitement, as the young little star children with sparkling eyes carefully watched each action, each gesture that the two demonstrated, and quickly memorized them in their heads. When the lesson ended, the teacher was still anxious and worried that the children were playful and wouldn't practice carefully, so that later if they messed up something important, the consequences would be difficult to remedy. In contrast, in Itsuki's heart, he only hoped the little star children would have more time to rest and recover because tomorrow, an important mission awaited the group would have to set out to battle the 12th Impurity Lord. That night, Alfie prayed that everything would be alright. The next morning, as planned, the journey began. This time's opponent was the Sagittarius Impurity Lord, a bearer of the fire element's power. The children quickly grabbed swords and charged forward. But for Itsuki, regardless of what element the opponent used, they would have difficulty escaping a beating when facing the whole team. Our hero grandly directed the little star children to charge forward. Although initially a bit clumsy, encountering some unexpected adversities, right after that, thanks to timely support, everyone quickly regained their spirit, working together harmoniously to fight back. Once again, as if it had become a habit, Itsuki won, and in his heart, he was waiting for the result so he could return to the real world. Yet strangely, nothing happened at all. Everyone was confused, not understanding what was going on. However, at that very moment, the ground suddenly shook. A dazzling light flashed, causing Itsuki to be shocked as he realized this was an ominous sign. The sky had been covered by a layer of dark clouds. The king appeared, his face heavy with sadness, expressing regret that they still couldn't prevent the resurrection of the 13th ghost. He immediately requested Itsuki to quickly find the 13th priestess, preparing for the final battle that was coming. In the rush to search, Itsuki had the chance to meet Mayuri going along with Alfie, and from her learned the shocking news that a new labyrinth had appeared. Alfie hurriedly ran back to the room, pulling out a magic book that had been hidden for a long time. The secret exploded right before his eyes. It turned out that Alfie, the companion who seemed so close all this time, was actually the 13th priestess. It was right in front of him all along, yet he thought it was at the horizon. She plucked a strand of her hair, shaped it into a bow, and stuck it on the back of Itsuki's clothes. However, cruel fate didn't stop there. A bow-shaped strand of hair that was once attached to Itsuki was accidentally thrown away by Mana. Even the magic prepared for protection, an eraser, was ruined by the clumsy tourist delivery girl. Alfie was so desperate that she had to try weird methods like writing the name of her loved one on paper, rolling it up, and swallowing it, yet still without result. Meanwhile, Itsuki persisted in his search by standing on the street holding up signs looking for someone, a method so naive it was hard to believe, causing passers-by to be surprised. He himself thought that living to this age, he had never seen anyone searching for someone this way. Seeing Seiya surrounded by a group of young girls, Itsuki had hoped to find the 13th priestess among these girls. Mana, who was accompanying him, was so noisy it made him want to find a hole to crawl into. Seiya's group of girls caused such noise and disorder that it forced Itsuki to quickly change location, missing Alfie, who had shouted that she was the 13th priestess. Unexpectedly, just a short while later, Mana went to Alfie's room to reproach her, revealing the truth that it turned out Itsuki had been sympathized with by a few young girls who had devised a plan suggesting that if Alfie stepped forward and claimed to be the 13th priestess, everything would fall into place. However, the crucial issue was still how to have a proper meeting, truly surprising enough to be credible. At that time, Alfie handed over to Mana a videotape left by her father. He had told Alfie to use it when she became a priestess, asking to bring it to Itsuki. Mana quickly accepted the mission, delivering it right away to the companion, and both of them turned their eyes to the TV screen, anxiously waiting to see what mystery would be revealed. What appeared wasn't an earth-shattering secret spell, but a tearjerker romantic film, full of romantic love. Itsuki initially thought of stopping halfway through. Fortunately, thanks to Mana's persuasion, he patiently followed. And from there, the idea of uniting with Alfie arose. Just like in the movie, Itsuki later drove a luxurious convertible car like a domineering CEO, arms around the beauty's shoulders as they traveled everywhere, hand in hand, happy. Next, they had an Italian-style meal, the atmosphere filled with sweetness, making Mana confident the plan would succeed perfectly. After eating and having fun, Mana personally brought the two home, leaving in the room only the couple facing each other in a private space. He frankly admitted that he didn't want to be an actor in a drama, but he wanted to learn about the real Alfie. Here, Itsuki discovered that Alfie had a strange hobby. She admired celebrities from the real world, but ironically, they were all stars past their prime. The young man didn't hide anything, frankly admitting that he had long been an orphan. That sincerity made Alfie also want to open up, though still a bit shy. To avoid the heavy atmosphere, they both changed the subject to books, making random small talk. However, what was meant to happen eventually did. Young man and woman, together in a private room. It was difficult to avoid physical attraction. Alfie gradually got carried away by emotions, leaning over to press Itsuki down onto the bed, preparing for a passionate foreplay. But ironically, she got intestinal blockage from swallowing the paper the day before. After a night of rest and recovery, the next day Alfie wore the innocent dress that Itsuki gave her, and finally, they blended in passionate lovemaking. And as a destined fate, from that union, the 13th child was born. This content is for adults only. Children, please go elsewhere. The 13th little star child had just been born and became the center of attention. But suddenly Alfie collapsed into Itsuki's arms. It turned out that after a day of satisfaction in Mana's arms, being completely drained, she was exhausted to the point that all she could do was roll over and sleep. Itsuki thought he would have some peace. But unexpectedly, before his sleep could be complete, the king's command had arrived. The king wanted to meet Itsuki privately and revealed an earth-shattering truth because the 13th child had been born. During this time, our protagonist Itsuki was still leisurely enjoying the Christmas atmosphere. Mana flew alongside, reprimanding him that he should stay close to the priestesses after completing the act. Itsuki remarked how wonderful the Christmas atmosphere was, with twinkling lights hanging along the walkways, and somewhere the ringing of bells stirring people's hearts. He felt somewhat nostalgic for the old world. Mana was still hovering nearby. Then it wanted to separate to go into a store to buy adult magazines for research materials. Seeing the idol shop by the road, Itsuki wanted to go in to buy a little surprise gift for Alfie. Along the way, he kept thinking about whether Alfie would like it or not. Everything seemed like a joyful moment, until a messenger came to invite Itsuki to be present at the palace immediately. Before the king, the atmosphere was suffocatingly tense. He revealed a secret that only Itsuki should know. Sealing the 13th ghost was the only way to prevent the apocalyptic disaster about to descend. The previous impurity lords, no matter how strong, still had weaknesses to be defeated, but this one was completely different. According to ancient texts, it was completely invincible. There existed only one way to defeat it, which was to perform the Great Seal ritual. However, what made Itsuki freeze was the painful truth that for the Great Seal to succeed, he was required to sacrifice himself. This made Mana, who was happily running around looking for him, also feel that something was wrong. The bad news descending in the middle of the snowy night made the young man's heart even heavier. Returning to the bustling streets, looking at the passing crowd with peaceful smiles, Itsuki felt like an outsider. All of Mana's concerns at this time didn't reach his ears. He continued on. He sat motionless, dazed before the brilliant Christmas lights. Clearly, Christmas was supposed to be a time to be happy like everyone else. He knew he was the only one who could protect everyone. Mana also shed tears because it felt sad for him. While not knowing what to do, he saw a little girl happy after receiving a Christmas gift from her father. He remembered he had to buy gifts for everyone. Then he suddenly stood up, deciding to turn his sadness into action. Itsuki took on the role of Santa Claus, buying gifts for everyone, from children to adults, then spending time with the ladies so that everyone would feel happy. When giving Maharu her gift, he expressed deep gratitude to her. At first, she awkwardly just took it as politeness. But when she opened the box and saw the doll inside, because her old doll was almost broken, emotions welled up, causing the young girl's heart to tremble. She recalled the promise from years ago. They would share joys and sorrows, standing shoulder to shoulder with Itsuki, no matter how difficult things were. In response, he smiled softly, placed his hand on her shoulder, saying in a firm voice that no matter what happened, he would always be a safe, warm shelter in her arms, even when they both grew up. This doll, she should regard it as him so that if one day he was absent, she would still have it to remember him by. This sounded like a death flag. Amidst the romantic setting, the two were about to exchange a sweet kiss when Mana suddenly intervened, inadvertently turning itself into a third wheel, breaking the solemn moment. The next day, Itsuki went to the nursery to meet Alfie. She was weak in bed, and he devotedly cared for her every detail, like cooking Japanese food to make it easier for her to eat, then giving her a Christmas gift that made Alfie laugh with joy. She confessed that she was avoiding reality. Yet elsewhere, the child born from Alfie was being shunned by the little star children just because it was somewhat different. Finally, Alfie gathered all her courage and told Itsuki about her past. She was a half-breed between a Mervit and a priestess in this world. But one day, her mother was killed by an impurity, and people feared Alfie would also become a target, so they forced her to flee. They believed she was a special little star child, born with innate priestess powers. Mana found her too beautiful for a little star child, as it thought little star children should forever remain as children. However, that power, that compatibility, and that immortality were now gone. She only had her heart and will to dedicate to the boy in front of her, because she had performed the love ritual. At that moment, the scene switched to a strange TV program, where Alfie tried her hand at various roles, making Itsuki confused, not understanding what was happening. Night fell, snow fell again, and in the silence, Itsuki had thought it all through. He quietly chose a set of armor and weapons for himself, preparing to face destiny, moving Mana to tears. The next morning, Itsuki gave Mana candy, gently confirmed she was truly a girl, and then suddenly hugged her tightly from behind, thanking her for helping him so much over time. Mana blushed, thinking, could it be that Itsuki wanted to have a child with it too? Itsuki cuddled Mana, then pressed it down, looking quite inappropriate. He praised it for being very cute, then hugged it in his arms and slept. When Mana woke up during the night, tears fell because of the premonition that this might be the last time. It kissed him on the forehead. The next morning, when Mana woke up and didn't see Itsuki anywhere, it hurriedly searched around thinking Itsuki had left, but fortunately, he was still there. He was determined that today he would go with her toward the life and death battle with the 13th ghost. The sky turned pitch black. Everyone was present before the labyrinth. Earlier, the priestess girls, after learning the truth that if the 13th ghost was sealed, Itsuki's soul would also be permanently sealed with it, were all shocked and couldn't believe someone would think of such a harsh method, and why people had to be sacrificed. However, Itsuki didn't hesitate at all, faced with the impending doom hanging over the kingdom. According to the king, he had calmly agreed to sacrifice himself in exchange for peace for the land and people here, but he told Alfie that he wouldn't perform the Great Seal ritual. Seeing him so close to her, the children couldn't help but tease. Itsuki wanted to fight with all his might. It was true that sacrificing him would keep this country safe, but he still wanted to live with everyone, so he would find another way. As they ventured deeper into the 13th labyrinth, each step Itsuki took was like approaching death. Yet Mana still resolutely followed him into danger because her heart and body had long been given to that young man, with nothing left to regret. It hoped for a happy ending and a happy home. Not long after, both had reached where they needed to be. Without needing to make a move, they could feel the terrifying power surrounding the entire space, and then the 13th ghost officially appeared. Itsuki was the first to strike, but the opening attack didn't bring much effect. The enemy seemed completely unharmed. Outside, everyone was anxious like sitting on fire, but because they had been ordered to protect the people, no one dared to disobey. Alfie also kept her vow to take care of the children. That feeling was like a wife waiting for her husband to return from work, making Alfie momentarily feel warm. However, the children were inconsiderate, continuously teasing, saying Alfie was stealing the role of a mother, had a power delusion disorder, and even comparing her to a housewife having an affair with her husband's boss, making her feel that raising them was really a waste of rice. It turned out all these inappropriate thoughts were taught by Mana. Meanwhile, the king and Narcissists were urgently preparing the Great Seal ritual. If not completed, the entire world would soon be immersed in impurities, and Maharu would not be able to return to her world. So, she and the priestesses had begun to chant. Itsuki in the labyrinth continuously launched his strongest attacks, but still to no avail. At this moment, the ritual began. 13 priestesses simultaneously chanted, sealing both the ghost and Itsuki's soul. He was almost bound, with just one more step before his soul would be erased. Fortunately, Maharu, because of her guilty conscience not wanting her loved one to die, had stopped chanting. Thus Itsuki escaped death by a hair's breadth, but immediately took another blow from the Demon King. Maharu apologized to everyone. She wanted to find another way to save the world without sacrificing Itsuki. Mayuri immediately explained that in the library she had found ancient texts recording that if the Mervit had a strong enough connection with the priestesses, it would be entirely possible to harness that tremendous power, enough to sweep away impurities, while also having a chance to save Itsuki's life. But this method was very risky. After listening, the king, with his experience, decided to call on all priestesses to unite their efforts to assist. Outside the labyrinth door, Alfie and the little star children clearly sensed the increasing danger. That ghost was spreading everywhere, forcing them to immediately gather their fighting spirit, protecting the country to the end, while the 13th little star would protect Alfie. The priestesses were also present to help. Then they began to chant. Everyone believed that the power of unity would overcome all challenges. 13 little star children shot light into the sky, forming giant robots, giving more power to their allies. Inside the labyrinth, Mana had taken a blow for Itsuki, advising him that now was not the time to fight just to eliminate enemies, but to fight for the people he wanted to protect. Just as the atmosphere resembled a sad play, Mana handed him an energy drink it had originally intended to keep for a night together, but now needed more than ever. Itsuki drank it all and headed straight out of the labyrinth, launching a decisive blow facing the ghost. Before attacking, he sent sincere apologies to everyone, promising to eliminate the cursed impurity at all costs. The battle erupted fiercely. Smoke and fire billowed in the night sky, brilliant light shining in all directions. In the midst of this, a beam of light suddenly pierced through Alfie, causing the entire scene to freeze. Alfie was content to sacrifice herself to protect Itsuki's life, considering it as completing the mission of a little star. Alfie's final kiss, like a prince's kiss awakening a sleeping princess in the forest. But here the princess did not wake up, instead transforming into light and vanishing, leaving deep pain in Itsuki's heart. The hatred for the 13th ghost in Itsuki's eyes grew even more fierce, and when the Holy Seal appeared, all the remaining priestesses unanimously gave their full power to him. The 3 robots of the Little Star Children also united with Itsuki, creating the ultimate form. The first unified attack caused the ghost to reveal its true form. It screamed, cursing Itsuki as a defiler of priestesses' souls. Itsuki boldly denied this, affirming that it was through love and harmony that the Little Star Children were born, and that beautiful love, even with carnality, could not be compared to the inhumanity of the ghost. In his fury, Itsuki slashed across the enemy, concentrating all his power for a general offensive, forcing the ghost into the exact position of the Great Seal. The remaining task belonged to the priestesses and Little Star Children. They chanted in unison, eradicating the enemy completely. The final mission ended in glorious victory. Itsuki was commended by the king, meeting Maharu again on a balcony in a peaceful setting. Mission accomplished, he only had a promise to keep with his childhood friend. Therefore, he would return with her. When saying goodbye to everyone at the gate to return to Japan, the priestesses came to bid him farewell. But because they didn't want to say goodbye at all 12 priestesses and the little star children rushed forward, deciding to follow him. Alfie and the star children had also been revived, and even Mana, inexplicably, had turned into a human. The gate had closed, and they couldn't return to the old world. With no other choice, Maharu had to take them all home to live together. At the wedding, all 13 girls wore bridal dresses to marry Itsuki. And so from now on, Itsuki and his 13 wives would live together for a lifetime in a new, peaceful, and happy life.